Here we go. Welcome to Paddlecast with Betsy
and Billy. On Paddlecast, we talk to and about paddlers who are pushing limits, paddlers who are pushing their own limits, and pushing the limits of paddle sports.
We are recapping the Devizes to Westminster race today, 125 miles. It is the UK's oldest ultra marathon. And Billy, congratulations on your win.
Yeah, I was going to say we're going to be spending most of the time talking about who won. We might put in a few of the other paddlers that did do the course. Obviously, focus mostly on the winners, I think.
Yeah, no, we've got some really cool interviews for you today. We've had some fantastic conversations about what went on behind the scenes, as well as everything that I got to witness firsthand doing the live stream. But let's start with how did we do with our predictions? First place, obviously, not so good.
I really wanted to sort of say that I was fancied myself a little bit for the win, but I couldn't. On a podcast, I just after sort of ranking myself higher in other years, maybe 2 years ago than I really deserve. I've done it before and I've come second, so I kind of just went along with it, but. I mean, Alex and Magnus smashed us down the Waterside series, so yeah, they were rightly seeded first. But yes, we got that one wrong, and then you got George and James coming third correct, and I got that one wrong. But it was tight. Yep. It came down to the tideway. It came down to the last, sort of 15 miles.
Yeah, it was really tight, and I think we were close enough, but I don't feel too bad about being too far off. I do think, we knew how close it was going to be. And I really had a wobble when we did our predictions, when I was like, well, last year I bet on experience. And I should have gone with the wobble there. But
yeah,
it was very close. So you, Billy, you and Jon O'Grady won in 16 hours, 46 minutes. Alex Lane and Magnus Gregory came second in 17 hours and 8 minutes. George, Durden, and James Walkinton were third in 17 hours, 28 minutes. And then Luke Escott and James Webster were fourth in 17 hours, 44 minutes. But yeah, that fight between first and second, it was like 2 minutes apart at midnight.
Yeah. Well, I did I say on, I don't know whether I said to you like privately or on the podcast, I expect the lead to change hands several times. And so we took out a lead on the first bit with no portages. Alex and Magnus then portaged like absolute machines and took the lead, and then we regained it on the river, which is kind of it went exactly to our race plan, as we'll discuss later, but it was touch and go.
Yeah, when you look back on it, it's kind of like, okay, that does actually make sense that's how it unfolded. But definitely in the moment, I was really, there was a lot of kind of doubt as to exactly how it was going to play out, because it really was
trust
very
your
close.
Podcast co-host, Betsy. Have some
I'm sorry
faith.
for doubting you.
Sometimes, it happens. It works out. And Jon and I pulled it out of the bag.
You did.
After a couple of failed attempts.
Well, Podium isn't exactly failure, but yeah, third time you guys finally got the win.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no,
and
we'll
hard fought win as well. I think having competitors, especially like Alex and Magnus there to push you, was beneficial.
No, it was good.
Yeah, and George and James, so you had thought that Escott and Webster were going to take third. I bet on George and James, which they were very happy. They told me they were glad that I was backing them before they got started. And then they did an hour 50 on the tideway.
Yeah.
which is incredible. Normally it's 2 hours.
Yeah, came past us like an absolute train. But they really, I would have put them in third if I'd have known that they were gonna. This sounds silly. Race the race that they did. If I'd have known that of their plan to really take it steady, I would have backed them. I assumed that they were going to do the racing for the glory, as a lot of Div 1-2 paddlers often do, and they didn't. They kept their cool. They did a really sensible pacing, and it came good for them. So
It did.
I had to eat my words.
Yeah. Yeah. And Luke Escott and James Webster still ran a great race, and they hit the tide window really early, which was exactly what they planned, because they were, getting that finish was so important to them. And I think, yeah, the fact that both of those crews really ran exactly the races they wanted and got, really good results. Definitely keep an eye on them.
Yeah, yeah, and really, we did well. We did well. Well done us for also backing the complete unknowns in Tom and Aritz, because Aritz had hardly seen the course before, and you don't know. Often foreign crews do really badly first time round on this course, and they didn't. They came in. They snuck in fifth position, and they did really well. That was possibly one of the standout performances for me.
It was. And they were such a happy boat. And, like talking to them, especially Ritz coming over from Spain, he was just so happy to be there at the start. They were chit chatty and smiley, as far as I could tell, all the way down the course. I'm sure it wasn't really. And then at the finish, and having his family come over from Spain, really, really exciting. So, yeah, kudos to Tom Dawson and Aritz Martiartu for running a great race and cracking that top five.
From what I hear, it won't be the last entry from that club, and they will probably have a boat in the race next year.
Oh, that'd be great. All right. Welcome, Pamplona.
Yeah,
We're happy to have you here. And our another an international crew with both international paddlers, our Dutch friends, Jouke Witteven and Floor Zeggers, got a new Dutch record
yeah, that's really cool. How long had the record stood for?
since 1990,
Wow, yeah, that's
which
a good one.
is, yeah, so 36 years.
Yeah,
Really impressive. And they cracked 19 hours as well. So I think I saw lots of orange flowers at the finish and lots of very, very happy Dutch celebrations. So really excited for them.
that's very cool. We did have a slight mishap in our predictions for the mixed crew, didn't we?
We did, and I've got to, take responsibility for that. We didn't have the start list, and I hadn't had official confirmation that Mike and Shireen were racing in C2, but Mike Thornton and Shireen Voller in Canadian doubles absolutely smashed out the Waterside Series, which they frequently do. They race it, many, many years they race together, and at least one, if not all four Waterside races. They were the second mixed crew in 19 hours and 8 minutes
Wow.
and seventh overall, which is a very impressive finish in a canoe. One of the top times, getting close to that 19-hour mark is really challenging in a canoe, and they've done it.
And then we also missed out the third mixed crew of Lawrence Plant and Kath Drummond, which I don't believe they did any of the Waterside series.
No, I think you're right, but they had done DW previously.
Right. Okay.
Not together, but individually. Kath Drummond raced, again, we didn't have the start list when we recorded, so we didn't, and I think they were the last entry. They were the last
Oh,
boat
really?
member.
Okay. Yeah.
So last minute entry. Kath raced with Kat Wilson a few years ago,
Yeah.
and Lawrence Plant had raced before as well. But yeah, we didn't know they were entered, and they just put down a really impressive, consistent race the whole way down. So yeah, 1950, third mixed, and I think that's eighth overall.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
In the women's race, that was where, usually something goes wrong somewhere for someone during DW. There was definitely a few incidents. There was a Richmond crew who had to get their entire rudder system replaced in
Oh
Newbury.
wow.
Yeah, all the drama was going on in Newbury. But unfortunately, our favorites in the women's race, Sarah Vernau and Shuna Neve, had to retire at Newbury.
Yeah, I spoke to Shuna briefly after the race, and she had massive issues with her wrist tendons, which I've had before, and it's brutal.
It was disappointing, but I'm hopeful that they'll come back another year, and happy for Rebecca Bird and Anya Whelan, who were able to stick it out and take the win.
Yeah, they did really well. They finished just behind us, didn't they? Just walked up the steps, the next boat.
I think that's right. Yeah, they
Yeah.
were 22 hours, 15 minutes.
And then one more record after our European, oh no, sorry, not European, Dutch record. We had the mixed services record with the Bowyer and Bowyer boat.
Yes, it was one of the love boats, Alex Bowyer and Elle Bowyer. So they've taken that record down by 1 minute to 21 hours, 33
They
minutes.
took 1 minute off.
Only 1 minute.
Did they know about the mixed service record beforehand? I want to know about that. I want to know if they knew they were that close to it.
So I believe that they had looked at the record during the planning process. So when they were writing their schedule, but then I think this might be similar to Alex and Magnus, where looking at the wind, it was a tailwind, but also a headwind at points. They kind of like stepped back from the record as a goal, and it was maybe more of a stretch goal. So yeah, I don't think they were necessarily expecting to get it. So they were pretty pleased.
Well, you mentioned the Love Boat race. One of our favourites for the Love Boat race had some pretty exciting news on the Tideway, didn't they?
They did. I could not believe this. What a story. So Anushka Freeman and Rob Perry made it all the way to Hammersmith. And Rob said, which, just a few miles from the finish, and Rob said, "Can we pull over so I can get out and stretch?" So now this is like, moments from finishing DW. No, she's been working hard the whole way down. She's the experienced paddler in the boat, doing all the driving, planning everything. She says, "Oh, okay, fine."
That would have caused
we'll
an
pull
argument.
over.
For me, I think that would have caused an argument in the boat.
Yes. Now, actually, you guys did get out and stretch, to be fair.
We did, but it was agreed. It was,
Yeah.
It wasn't one person asking. It was, yeah.
I think it's a high pressure moment to be in, but I think it was worth it, and she was probably happy that she agreed, because when she turned around, Rob was stretching on one knee, and he proposed to her, and she said yes.
Very
and he
cool.
used a Haribo ring. I guess he brought like a pack of gummy rings, and I think she went through a few. So they finished DW engaged, which, as far as I'm aware, is the first time that anyone has gotten engaged during DW, which is pretty cool.
I think that's a fairly safe bet. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the winning love boat, not by time, but by story.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was. That's going to be very memorable for both of them, isn't it? But yeah, a good race for everyone. It was a really good race with actually close racing throughout.
Yeah, really good. Still a few retirements that were disappointing, but I think a much, much higher completion rate compared to last year. The wind was difficult, but I think the consensus by and large seemed to be from the crews that it was really helpful, and definitely a lot better than last year's conditions. And it finished at Westminster. So, what more could we ask for?
Yeah, exactly. Finishing at Westminster is a big deal. I have spoken to several people who rate it as harder than last year's headwind, and I think I'm there as well. I found this year's really tough. Like with a headwind, you sort of just get on with it. Like the headwind is there with a tailwind, and it was such a gusty tailwind. Last year wasn't gusty, I don't believe, and it was quite a moderate headwind. And a lot of that was, your own apparent wind. So you're going down the river at say 8 miles an hour, adding to, I don't know what it was, like 10 miles an hour, which comes out at 18 miles an hour. But this year there was a very gusty tailwind for most of it, and you can't the boat. We had to grip the boat so hard on the portages. We didn't put the boat on our shoulders, which I'd normally do on DW to save your wrists. We kept it low, so your forearms are blowing up big time. After, because you don't the portages are all on your left hand until Denford or Dunmill, depending on what you call it, and then you swap. But your left forearm is toast by that point. You can't release your hand on your top hand on your paddle, so you're gripping your blades really tight. I found it tough, and I have
Yeah.
spoken to some other people. One person even with 19 DWs who said it was one of the hardest he's done. So
Wow. Okay.
um, it don't underestimate the conditions. It was a toughie.
Yeah. No, that is fair. I did almost get blown into the canal at one point.
Oh, that would have been good
And
on the
that
live
was
stream.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, Storm Dave was I was shocked by the winds at some points and surprised that I wasn't hearing more complaints at the time. But yeah, I think it sounds like a lot of that was just um the consequences, the physical consequences of, gripping the paddle and things like that. And balancing, right? That does kind of wear your core more to be balancing when you've got
yeah.
big
We
gusts
like
from weird directions.
we really struggled down Henley Straight, and it was coming over our shoulder, but majority behind us. The first section there was tough, and I did hug the bank a bit, and it wasn't until we were nearly all the way down that I came into the middle. There were definite bits where you really had to be careful.
Yeah. So let's get into the interviews next. And before we play all of our great chats, um, what did you find most surprising from talking with your competitors about what was going on during the race that you maybe didn't see while racing them?
The thing that most surprised me was, and I found this out before we interviewed them, talking privately with Alex Lane, that they didn't get any time splits on us at all down the course. And the funny thing about that is most of our plan to win hinged on them getting time splits on us and knowing that we were right on them. We wanted to put pressure on Magnus, the novice DW paddler, and they weren't paying any attention to what we were doing. We're putting in a huge amount of effort to sort of do that, and they're just not paying any attention. So that surprised me most. It really surprised me how mature of a race plan that George and James went with. As I said earlier, like I would have put them as the favourites for sort of third place if I knew that they were going to race that maturely. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, and Alex didn't even race with a watch, right?
Yeah,
Which I had heard from Kat Wilson and Owen Peak in Devizes. We talked about it, and they said they thought she might not be racing with one. But her ability to just judge so much by feel without getting those splits, I thought was really interesting and unusual and largely effective. um, I also really enjoyed hearing from George and James about there was some speculation during the Waterside series that they had a little bit of a lean in their boat.
yeah, yeah. This is a good one. Yeah, no, I'd heard this as well, and it just got shut down. Everyone I mentioned it to just said no, there is no lean, and more and more people kept saying, "What about the lean that George and James have?" Yeah,
Yeah, I think it was making the rounds of the gossip mill. I think largely with people who are just a little worried about them making it down the course and wanting to make sure they were going to do okay. And yeah, we got the official confirmation there was a lean, and they fixed it by paddling 125 miles together.
Not a bad way to do it, is it? Since you mentioned talking to Cat Wilson on the live stream, for me that was an absolute highlight. I don't know when you were talking to Tom Sharp, Owen Peake, Cat Wilson around the time of sort of Alex and Magnus starting, and maybe waiting for John and I, and it was
Yep.
just absolute gold. Like the DW knowledge that came out of those of Kat, Owen, and Tom was just brilliant. And if anyone gets a chance to go back and watch that, it's really worth just watching the cogs turning and listening to what comes out, because it's just gold.
It was fantastic. It's so cool to hear from so many, yeah, DW vets and people who really know the race so well and can really kind of predict, exactly what might be happening down the course. So, yeah, big thank you from me to everyone. Kat, Owen, Tom, Keith, who came on the live stream, everyone else, and Henry Carter, of course, who was there co-commentating and taking the photos. It was a very cool experience. Always have a lot of fun covering the race.
Yeah, I think it's great. You did a great live stream, and DW would be very much poorer without it. It's so good to let people at home watch it. They just wouldn't know anything what was going on really without it. So well done, and thank you for that.
Thanks, Billy. Well, it's been great. We had a fantastic audience this year, and I think a special treat has been the messages from the racers who rewatched it after the fact. Let's turn it over to the interviews. So enjoy these conversations, and thanks to the podium finishers for speaking with us. Welcome, Billy and Jon. Billy, you're on the other side of the interview tonight. And congratulations again to both of you for getting your official DW win.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was felt like it was a long time coming, and we really had to work for it. But I think it proves to people, if you work hard at it, you can get it.
I think there was a lot of people who were happy to see it finally come to fruition for you guys. And it was hard won as well. You had tough competition to beat to get it.
Yeah, I think we did say at the beginning of this, we need to pull this out of the bag, otherwise we need to just crawl under a rock and not return.
Well, so I have to ask. Now, we did our predictions on Paddlecast beforehand, and I'm sure those were a little bit different than what you all were kind of thinking privately. So, Jon, starting with you, how would you have honestly rated your chances at winning?
I was quietly confident. I hadn't spoken too much to Bill about that because it's dangerous, isn't it, to start kind of counting your chickens, counting your eggs, whichever way around. I think I expected more in the early parts of the race from James and George. In terms of it being nip and tuck a little bit more than that early doors. And then as for Alex and Mags, they were a lighter boat. We did think that they would be up and gone on the canal, and then it'd be a case of pulling them back in. I was more trying to compare it to our first year of doing it, of racing, and obviously that was my first year, so it was a big learning curve. But the second year, I don't really think we gave the best account of ourselves because we put it together last second. We hadn't really done all that much time in the boat. The training was a bit last minute. So I think it was a bit easier this time, being confident of knowing, right, we've done exactly what we had to do, and comparing it more to the first year, really. And then obviously adding a load of learning.
Billy, what was your off the record rating of yourselves.
Do you remember when we spoke to Kira before the Durban Surf Ski Worlds, and
Yes.
we spoke to her on the recording, and she was, oh, it's going to be really tough. And then when we went off the recording, and she just said, I am going to go so hard. Like I was in that sort of position. Like it was we're going, and if we blow up at Chertsey, it doesn't matter. Like that's what we've got to do. We've got to try and win it, and it's not keep going, pace ourselves, and maybe we get second. That wasn't an option for us. It was go for it.
And I mean, that really showed in the numbers that you guys put out, especially, in that first part of the race. So how, you did go out really hard. You joked before the race that it was a go till you blow strategy. That's pretty much what it was. How early did it actually start to hurt?
I had the first 5 hours in my head where I was just going to get my head down and work in the back of that boat and keep it honest. I was all right until about 5 hours, I'd say, because I had that mindset in my head that that's what me and my mind had agreed that we're going to do, kind of thing.
I was struggling a lot earlier. My shoulder was playing up within the first hour, and about an hour in, I was like, I'm going to need some paracetamol here. But I was like, if I call for it now, it's going to raise alarm bells, so I'll hold off. And I waited till about 2 hours in or something like that before I was like, hey, let's get the paracetamol rolling. John was pushing that speed on the to Wootton Rivers on the pound. Certainly the first 2 hours, it was John that kept going, come on, like we've dropped it, let's get it back up again.
And that, Billy, was your shoulder that you dislocated last October.
Well, yeah, I just neglected the rehab in the last 8 weeks, and then it started playing up. But yeah.
And Jon, you have a long-term shoulder issue as well, right?
My shoulder was all right, really, until it was through the night. But there was a little bit of an argy-bargy on that bit. So when my shoulder actually went and gave me a lot of grief was on the straight just before Shepperton. So we'd done quite a good bit of the night. We were well into the race by then, and we were coming down and we were catching another K2, and then they came over and just tapped blades, and from that point it was gone. I think the running of the boat was good enough though to just support those lows. So even when it wasn't charging on, whilst it was ticking over, the boat was kind of doing what it needed to do in between. And I don't think we ever went through a low together, did we? Which was good.
No, we didn't go for a low together. I mean, it was I was struggling to keep anything down. Nearly everything was nearly coming up. Any gels, some of them would be okay, but some of them were having to go down in very small mouthfuls, and it was taking a lot longer to take gels, and not helped by someone on the support crew giving me a salt tablet wedged in between two jelly babies, which was brutal. Getting that down, it took several attempts to get that one down. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was difficult on the stomach, actually, this year's DW. Yeah, but yeah, like you say, no lows together. We pulled each other through the lows that we did have, and seemed to come out all right on it.
So one of the sort of tactical things that you all did was that you did get updates from your support crew on how the other crews were going, particularly Alex and Magnus. When Billy and I spoke with Alex and Magnus, we found out they actually never got any splits on you all. They only had splits versus, I mean, their support crew was checking, of course, but they were only getting splits on how they were doing against their own schedule. So how early did you all get the first splits on what other crews were doing, and how did that kind of information come to you, and how was it received?
We just had them all the way, didn't we, Bill?
Yeah.
Just constantly fed through, and updates I think we've got an ability to not really read too much into them. I know Bill's really good for that. I'm half deaf in a boat anyway, so I don't really hear it until it needs to get relayed. So I'm like, what did they say, Bill? So yeah, no, we don't really react too much to splits because you're on your own schedule, aren't you? So we get an update on the schedule and where the other teams were.
Yeah, I mean, we ran bang on schedule. It was very, very close. The race seemed to go exactly to plan. You know, we expected Alex and Magnus to take out time on us at that point, at the points that they did, and I think there was some miscommunication because I don't think the splits that we got exactly match what really happened. But I seem to think that we took. I seem to remember us taking out 2 minutes on them to Newbury, somewhere near either side of Newbury, which we didn't. And I just said to John that was a kit change. You know, we took 2 minutes out of them, and I said no, we didn't. They changed their kit, and we didn't. Yeah, we you know got to Newbury down on time, and I said don't worry, like our time to Newbury's fine. Like it's we're in the game, well in the game. And then when we got to Reading, I did not care what you know our support crew was going to tell us. Like I knew we were coming in there. The watch beeped not long before we got there, and it was something like a 7:38 or whatever it was. And I was just like, that's fine. You know, if they've gone quicker, that's dangerous for them. And you know, if they're behind us, then I'm happy with where we're at. And now begins the task of chasing them down, whatever they've got. And we were fine with that. You know.
I think, Billy, you said that you'd had a conversation and put some thought into like how far, how close you were going to be with the idea that Alex and Magnus might be leading off the start for a while.
I was expecting us to have a 2.5 minute lead at Pewsey based on the splits that we did on Waterside C. And I believe we could go back and double check this, but I think whatever we got on them on Waterside C on the first 5 kilometers or whatever like that is extrapolated equaled about 2.5 minutes to Wootton Rivers or to Pewsey on DW, and that's what we had. So that was sort of scarily accurate. And what I was expecting or hoping, I was hoping to be within 5 minutes of Reading, and I think John and I had discussed that.
Yeah.
The whole plan was let's hopefully be within 5 minutes at Reading, and then we'll chase them down on the deeper water with the bigger crew. But you know they're a lighter boat, aren't they? And that tailwind would have helped them more than it did us on that canal. But really, yeah, we couldn't keep up with their running. We took Crofton really easily, didn't we? We didn't run a single double, and I think because of the wind, you know, we didn't want to. We kept the boat low. We'd had the discussion about keeping the boat low in the wind, keep it at cockpits. Let's not get it on our shoulders.
It was making sure that the limitation was held for anything to go wrong, wasn't it? At that point.
Yeah.
When did you realize that you were going to catch them up, or when did you realize that you had suddenly taken the lead?
I think our mentality changed probably around Newbury. Positivity in terms of coming off the canal, end of the canal, you know, you're starting to get into flow on the canal. Yeah, I do think from that point, really, it was like, okay, we're exactly where we need to be in time for the deeper water, and probably ahead of it by that point.
Yeah, I think we had Newbury in our minds as, you know, that where they can do the most damage to us on portaging, as you've done your little graph of locks per mile, and I think it does get better after Newbury for the most part, really, sort of after Kintbury,
Yeah.
really, doesn't it? And I knew that on Waterside C, they hadn't taken any time out of us after Kimpbury. I think our splits were from Kimpbury pretty much the same to the finish. Had that in my mind. I also Magnus, suggesting, or Magnus or Alex suggesting that they'd perhaps gone a bit too hard chasing us. I knew that there was some risk of them having a bit of a blow up. Knew that once they got to Newbury, it was the longest race they'd gone. They'd done Waterside C, which finishes at Newbury. I know you have a bit on the beginning on DW that you don't have on Waterside C, and they didn't do Waterside D. But you get to Newbury and you go, oh, hang on a minute, like that's where Waterside C finished. But yeah, no, we got to Newbury. I think you're right. We got to Newbury and I was like, sort of like, we're out of the woods here. I got told by Ian White at Marlow that we were in the lead. And at Hambledon, do you remember Chris said that they were seeing more of Alex and Magnus's support
team,
which that's far from an exact science, because they could be getting to a different car park in different times and stuff like that. They might have stopped for fuel or for coffee on the way, but it was a nice thing to hear. We're seeing more of their support group. Okay, right. And yeah, I think working it out, Hambledon, it must be about where we actually retook the lead. And then Ian White told us we were in the lead at Marlow, and from there the splits just improved over time, really nicely.
How were you feeling by the point you got to Teddington then?
I'll let you go first on this one, John.
I don't actually know what you're laughing at now, because my mind's gone a bit hazy. The Teddington part for me was just okay. A lot of people say you get to Teddington and you feel like, right, you're nearly there now, and it's 2 hours, like on that tideway. And I was kind of the opposite. I was thinking, God, we've got another 2 hours.
So I remember maybe a little bit more than you do about the lower half of the Thames. But you said you nearly, somewhere near Elmbridge, you really didn't know if you were going to finish the race.
I had about an hour with that shoulder when I had the shoulder. It came very briefly. Another boat touched our boat coming in, and then we kind of put a little bit of a burn in just to kind of get rid of that boat. And it was probably a bit naive on my part. I think I was the one who kind of went for the burn over Bill. And after you've done so many miles, you don't want to be doing that unless you're George and James on a tideway. But yeah, that's when the damage happened to me. And my shoulder really did hurt. Like coming past Elmbridge, I was really worried. Got to the next portage and pushing away from the side, when the boat's stagnant, that was really sore. And then it was probably, I just said to myself, I'll give myself 40 minutes to an hour, and I've got to, because your brain's amazing at how it shuts things off. And after probably an hour, it did start kind of either forgetting about it, or you get something else starts raising its head and saying it also hurts. So yeah, that's kind of where, but Billy will fill the gaps in there, I'm sure.
Well, you afterwards you said I really didn't know whether I was going to finish at that point, and I was sort of like, you were, trust me, you would have been, yeah. But I felt really in control of the race from Bell Weir. Everything was going well. We got on the tideway, and the support crew had been trying to calm us down and sort of said, look, take your time. You can lose this race now, but if you under fuel, you skip us or something like that. And I was very much like okay, well, I'd rather just get going. Stop slowing us down. Let's go. And even at Teddington, our support crew said, Alex and Magnus took a long rest. And I was like, well, we're going. And actually, I looked back on your live stream and timed it. We took 2 minutes each. There was seconds in it. What the difference we took. I was pretty much all right, but the tideway, I'd been calling the kilometres in, hadn't I, John? I'd been saying, that was a good kilometre. I don't think they were doing that, and they weren't. And then on the Thames, I didn't have any of that. I was just like, let's get down and let's push hard. We thought we were pushing quite hard, didn't we? Until Putney, when a real crew came past us.
yeah, that was impressive at that point.
Yeah.
We went to make a move, and soon decided it's not happening.
When we overtake guys like the Mission Memory guys were always very good, and I think we overtook Frankie and Louis, and they were like, "Oh, look at you guys go! You're going amazing." And that's what they feel like when we turned and looked at George and James and went, "Wow, look at you!" Yeah. And then we claim it was for to sort our legs out, sort a bit of dead leg, and sort your numb bum out. But I think it was more of just to protect our egos, wasn't it? That we stretched our legs and let George and James get down the river, just so we couldn't see that gap increasing all the time.
Yeah. No, it was quite a nice privilege, that, wasn't it, to be able to just sort ourselves out.
Yeah, that was lovely. Yeah.
Although when you do say, shall we get out and just stretch our legs, when you're on that tideway, you can look to the side and think, yeah, we'll just go over there. And then you start paddling over to the side and you think, it's not coming any quicker. And it's like, it takes ages to get there. And then by the time you're there and you're out, and then you get back into the flow, it's quite a long way from the middle of that river back over to the side. We felt much better, didn't we, after we got back in as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were leaning a little bit from that lock, weren't we?
We always have a slight lean, and you're happy when my left hip rubs on the left side of the boat. And if that's happening, and I go, "You happy with boat, John?" You go, "Yeah, this is good." And I always think, right, clearly isn't, but we're going, So, that's where we're happy, and I know that I lean, and I have a suspicion that John has a bit of a lean as well.
I think I've developed a lean after so long in the boat with you now.
Don't start rumours.
I do now think I've got a lean.
A lot of people think that. I don't know whether it was just before we got out and stretched our legs. I felt my right hip rub on the right hand side of the boat, and I said to John, "You okay? You happy with the boat?" And you went, "Yeah, that's good." And I thought, crikey, we must be in pieces here. But it was a lot better once we got out, and then actually it really helped tackle that last few kilometers where it can get pretty rough, because we knew we had a nice lead, but it got really rough, didn't it? And one boat fell in front of us, and the safety boat went over to sort them out, and I thought, crikey, if we go in, it's going to be a long one, and that could be race over.
I think that's the biggest fear, isn't it? From when you get onto that tideway, it was the support team were telling us, we were kind of knowing it in our head. At that point, the race is ours, but all you need to do is not fall in, essentially. Don't, obviously, even if you blow up, I mean, to lose that kind of time is a big ask. But if you take a swim, it could really, really affect it. So I think that's the biggest danger, wasn't it, at that point, at the lower section? But it was much easier and better than I'd say than last year. Don't know if you'd agree, Bill.
Yeah.
The Uber boats seemed really good. They were good the year before, but it was very choppy the year before.
So when you heard that 18 minutes, because I think Henry shouted at you from Hammersmith Bridge where he was taking photos, 18 minutes.
In my mind, I was pretty sure he meant we have a lead of 18 minutes, but there was a slight nagging doubt that actually they were just 18 minutes down the river. They passed 18 minutes, which would have meant we had a lead of about 8 minutes.
Still that little bit of doubt that They're a good enough crew that it was never 100% until it was.
Yeah.
And then, of course, everything was all smiles at the finish. Well, lots of exhaustion.
It's just such a relief to get to that finish, isn't it? I think for me, that's the biggest thing, is when you get there, it's just there's not a relief like it. It's just, it's incredible. The feeling is incredible of getting to those steps. Yeah, that's why the race needs to carry on going to there. It's so special to get to there.
Yeah. So you all have done the race together 3 years in a row. And obviously, Billy, you've done it several times previous to that as well. But what would you say are some of the biggest DW lessons that you've learned, particularly as a crew over the last 3 years?
We faffed around a lot the first year, and just took too long at portages. There was just too many kilometers that, compared to Tomanushi, we were paddling as fast or faster than them, but they didn't stop as much on the portages. They didn't slow down as much on the portages that we were doing, and we improved on that year on year. We were pretty good on it last year, and as I said last year on the podcast, Alex Lane was a lot to do with that. This year, I think we were pretty good. We were, we did not mess around and stop too much. I mean, obviously, we had to put spray decks on. That was something that we didn't really plan on. There were a few like that, but there weren't many. And that, I think, is the biggest thing that we've done as a crew, was reduced our time when the boat wasn't moving forward.
Yeah, I'd probably concur with that. I think for me personally, in the build up to the races, I think what's learned from year 1 to 2 to 3, and it probably raised its head each year. And it's more of a personal thing of me and Bill, with two mates we get on, but communicating. So there'll be certain things that he rubs me up the wrong way, I'll rub him the wrong way. So Strava, he likes to see exactly what everyone's up to. He loves it. He's a data freak. So if you're not there and you're not online and he can't see, then he doesn't like that. Whereas I can go quite quiet and not really put stuff on. So we have discussions about that. Then there's other discussions, from my side to him. And, I think essentially what we've done well over the 3 years is communicate each year, because there's nothing worse than if you don't communicate. That's a long time to spend in a boat with someone when you've got niggles with each other, and you could end up having, probably because we're better mates, you could probably end up having little gripes with each other. But yeah, anytime there's any issues, we kind of had it out, didn't we, with each other, and put it to bed, sorted it out, moved forward. So if you think that, Bill?
Yeah. I'd like the ability to fall out with my DW partner, and we obviously didn't have that. Maybe that was good, but I would. We had to be more careful with how we talk to each other, obviously, and I think, if you come at it with a point of view where you're not mates, and you could just say, I don't know, maybe I'd completely ruin it if we weren't. So I don't know. I've had that feeling that actually I need the ability to fall out with my DW partner if it's not going the way I want it to, and maybe that would have not been very good. Maybe I needed John to guide me.
It's an interesting question. And I was just thinking about that with all the love boats that we had this year. And, it puts a lot of stress on any relationship. But the thing about being married to your partner is you can have a falling out because you're not going anywhere. Versus if you're friends, there is quite a lot of pressure on it, I guess.
Quite. It would have been explosive if we were going home, eating together, and then having to go to bed together as well, John. That I don't think we'd have got down the course 3 times together, would we?
No, you wouldn't be getting a good night kiss anyway, would you?
No.
I did love Alex and Magnus had to create a rule: no DW talk after dinner.
Yeah, that's a good rule. That's when Billy does all his analytics though after dinner.
One other thing that I think we improved on massively, Tom Dawson told me this weekend, was do you remember we didn't used to paddle out of portages very fast, and Tom said this weekend that when he was I think he was only one portage, but he just could not. He put the boat in the water at the same time as us, roughly on Waterside Sea, and he just lost us immediately. He said, "You guys paddled away from it so fast." And if you add all of that up over the DW 77 portages, it's I don't know how many seconds, but it makes a difference. I don't know what we were like last year, but it was interesting that someone else had picked up on it.
So now that you have achieved it, you've got your DW win together. Do you have some new exciting paddling goals coming up, or paddling or otherwise? We were just saying earlier, last year you ran a marathon right after, which you did not do this year. You went on holiday, which I think was
I went on holiday this year. Yeah. I actually got a message from James Walkinton when I was away on holiday, and he just said, "You can tell you've done this before." I've got quite a mechanical job, and I can't feel my fingers, so I'd only be at home anyway, kind of waiting until I can use my hands again. So it kind of made sense. But no, for me, I actually hadn't. There was a couple of things that I was toying with. I'd not put anything in the calendar because I just wanted to have my head on this. I didn't want any external pressure of things after that, and I didn't want I didn't really want my head to be thinking about, oh yeah, but I need to build speed work into this for this and X, Y, Z. So I just went up to DW. I've actually today just ordered a calendar to start getting things in the diary, have a look around what I fancy doing. Yeah, the Kromlovsky race is on my radar. That's like a bit of an itch for me.
Unfortunately, it's on the same weekend as Surf Ski Worlds, and I would quite like to go to Surf Ski Worlds. I'll see how this surf ski season goes. I'm going to be John White's escort boat at X Bay in a few weeks' time. So I'm easing myself into the season a little bit. And then I am really excited, actually. I'm doing the Essex Witch surf ski race in a double with one of the coaches who taught me to kayak, Les Thompson.
Well, and you just came back as of recording from the Bahandu Marathon in Estonia, which I think we're going to talk more about in the next episode. But
the Bahandu was amazing. It was great to be able to do it. Would have been lovely if it was 2 weeks later. Given definitely knew that
more time for recovery.
Yeah, DW is still very much in my shoulders. I don't know about you, John. Have you been on a boat?
Nope.
No. I still know about it. Like, my watch is still screaming at me. My HRV is still really low. Haven't recovered. So that can happen now. We didn't manage to do the cellar last year, did we?
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, I've done cellar, but it'd be good to go together and race that one.
Yeah.
Cellar's something you've got to do in canoeing. It's an incredible race.
Sounds like there's some more to come. Anything else you guys want to add about your race that you haven't shared yet that the viewers want to know?
We both struggled to wee. 9 hours. We drank plenty, and it was 9 hours until I had my first wee.
Yeah, same.
And it was
that's really bad.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah,
it was painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say that sounds actively painful.
Yeah, you were about 8 hours, weren't you, Bill?
No, I think it was about the same sort of time.
Was it? Yeah.
I mean, we had a really great race, and like last year was like the perfect run down. It just lacked some fitness and potentially some timing, like the schedule. You know, we got there too early. But this year again, it wasn't a perfect rundown. We did have a couple of lows, but it was about as good as you'd expect. And we hit the tideway 2 minutes off what we wanted to, you know, which is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
That was it. Everything was in perfect alignment this year. Well, congratulations again, guys. Really, really well done. Especially after following you all and live streaming the event for the last 3 years and then Paddlecast the last 2 years. It felt really cool to see the win finally come to fruition. So I am super happy for you. And I think there's a lot of people out there who can say the same. So congratulations. And
Thank you.
thanks for the time.
Cheers. Thanks, Betsy.
Welcome, Alex and Magnus. Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having us. It's great to see you both and chat.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for doing this. It's lovely that coming back kind of 10 years later and having this resource is just great. It's so easy to keep up with paddling now and kind of get involved and chat about it. It's brilliant. So thank you.
Yeah, really good.
Thank you.
So obviously you supported me last year, and we have a mutual friend in Julian Anderson who assured me many times, despite neither of us believing it, but you were going for a completion. You went off very hard for you know, some crew that were trying to complete DW. But you know, how true? You know, let's have some honesty here about this DW completion. You know, you must have, the schedule was set for the mixed record, was it not?
Yes, it was, and I'm not going to deny that.
8 minutes slower than?
I think. 8 minutes slower than.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's what we ended up with.
The schedule, the record was a stretch goal.
Right.
If we backtrack to Frank Lusmore, that was the first time we realised our boat was running well.
It didn't go unnoticed in the paddling podcast world.
You can have different goals as well, and it's easy to get caught up as well. So we certainly knew at Frank Lusmore and then some of the warm-up races that the boat was running really nicely. So it was fun to do, and but during the actual race, the main goal was always to finish, and then you kind of, well, I haven't done the race before, so I just set off doing the pace that felt right. That felt like DW pace from what we'd done in our training. It maybe was a bit quick, I would say, but you know, you get excited on the day and you kind of pull a bit harder than perhaps you should.
So we don't wear a watch on the front of our boat. So we paddle a lot off of feel. So it's very much about how the boat is feeling rather than looking at splits and pacing. And we weren't getting updates on anybody else. We didn't really want that. That wasn't our main purpose. And perhaps if we'd have sat down at the beginning and gone, right, this is actually what we do want to do, that would have changed things and we would have got splits. We would have been wearing a watch on the front of the boat. But
I did actually wear my watch, but I put it on the, I hadn't used it for all the training. You'd done all the intervals on your watch. And then I was worried it would run out of battery. So I put it on the battery saver mode and it was just giving me garbage. So it wasn't helpful. I did actually look down at it. I was like, oh, I'm intrigued. We feel pretty good. What's it saying? And it was like 6 minute pace or something. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not right. I think we're going a bit quicker than that. So, so it was pretty useless.
But it's been, it's got us back into paddling. We got our completion. It's left me wanting to do more with DW. But you're like, no, completion is very much what I'm after.
Yeah. There were times in the race where I thought, I kind of wondered how we were doing, but quite quickly that faded away, I have to say. soon as it started hurting a bit, I was like, no, just want to make it. Don't don't think about that.
I think that's experience though, because then later on you said I was shocked at how long I could hurt for and keep going. So I think with that experience, and I know Billy, we've briefly spoken about that, is you can hurt for a long time. And maybe if you were to do it again, you'd be like, oh, okay, so I could push a little bit harder through that section, knowing that it will hurt, but it's only for X amount of time.
Alex was telling me that your strategy was to go hard from the start and kind of put pressure on, especially me, not knowing.
We were not planning on putting any pressure on Alex whatsoever. I'm really sorry, Magnus, but from the moment we found out that you were racing, and but basically from Lusmore, when you were like a good crew, Alex was never mentioned as a weak link at all. It was just like, it was all focused on you, unfortunately, because you know what, you're a first timer, but also just remembering those few times just on the end of, and it is being quite unfair for 10 or 11 years ago, just on a couple of times when you blew up at the end of some marathons, and like you were a really good crew and we were quite scared of you, and we were clinging on to 11 years ago at Reading, he went out too hard in an assessment race and blew up. And we were like, there we go, that's our plan. That is our plan there.
It was very hard to find any weaknesses for you all. We're literally like scraping the bottom of the barrel.
No, and
you've not learned across running either.
No, I've had some spectacular blows in running as well. I've had some good races as well, to be fair. Sometimes, yeah. I think
adrenaline.
Yeah. I don't think I'm too bad at properly putting myself in the bin, but that's not the best always. I think I don't feel at the end of this DW that I left anything on the table. I think I went too hard early. I would go a bit easier. If I was in the same condition, I would kind of ease back a bit and try and last a bit longer, I think.
I think also in terms of pacing, so some responsibility from my end of it as well, possibly being a bit more experienced on that, could have reined it in a bit earlier on. But we spoke about stroke rate as well, in terms of blowing up towards the end. Like, we had a very low cadence. We watched back some of the waterside videos, and our cadence was it seemed quite a lot lower. And quite a powerful stroke, and that's more Magnus's style, so I had to adapt down to that stroke rate, and perhaps over a long distance, that power, because we've only been back for 6 months or a bit longer than that now, we've not got to the level where we can pull that powerfully for that long without there being some degradation. So I think that also played into it as well.
So I mean, my stroke rate is quite high, and I think you tap it along, and
yeah.
you keep that high rate, and as long as it's not too high, it blows people out. You just don't wear yourself up. I mean, it's almost like the Lance Armstrong, Jan Ullrich debate of cadence, and I'm really showing my age there. There must be more modern cyclists that have a cadence debate, but yeah, what is the ideal cadence? And for DW, I think it's higher than a marathon.
High cadence, lower gear.
Yeah. But I think cycling is as a good example, and I think the consensus now is they've settled on a high cadence. No one's out there grinding their way up mountains with pushing them, in the big ring. They're all spinning their legs, because that's the most efficient way to do these really long, grand tours. I completely agree with you. I think that perhaps the trouble for us is that we kind of signed up for this 6 months ago or whatever, and in order to get there, I think we needed to do just more time in the boat. We'd need a kind of year or 2 years campaign, and maybe mess around a bit more, because I just use my old sprint paddles. So
Did you? I was just about to say, what size blades did you use?
I think I didn't use I used my medium plus, not my large minus, but they're quite long. I think they're 221 long. They're quite long. So I think that could have been maybe that would have been good to use some smaller blades, or shorter.
Yeah.
Something else can always change as well. You talk about all the what ifs, like we could have changed X, we could have changed Y, we could have changed Z, but you don't know what impact that could have on a different thing. And I think that's where Jono and yourself had like that advantage of having done 3 years of DW campaigns together, that you've played around with a lot of those bits and pieces. And I know you're still evolving, like you're talking about the fact you were still changing things the week before, which made me feel a lot better. But you've got that to go back on and look at as well. And that's something to remember for everybody. Like, it's not always a 6-month journey. It can be 1-2 years of getting it right to the performance that you want to achieve.
So should we get into how intense it must be to, be engaged, planning a wedding, and then also planning your first DW?
Yeah. So really early on, we're quite different in how we like to approach things. So I'm very much all in, and you're a bit more laid back.
Sure.
So we agreed. We had an agreed approach of what would work for both of us, so it wasn't too intense on the training or misaligned goals, I think is the best way to put it. So the aim was always to get to Westminster, and whatever else happened. I will let Mags answer how intense living with me probably was at times.
Well, I think the having early on to set the kind of basic training plan, just like how many times a week are we going to paddle, what's kind of what do we want to do to because the majority of DW is the training for DW, so we needed to make sure we had something that was manageable and fun and not just all the time together. So it worked really well. We did 4 paddles a week, and then I think the bits where it's difficult is all of the kind of scheduling and boat faff and things like that. We were certainly, there were times when we weren't sure who might be able to support us, and that was a worry for you. And we kind of go round in circles, and then because you're there together all the time, you just start going to bed and finally start talking about something else, and then it's like, well, what about that thing? And it's very easy to just get in a loop and keep talking about it.
We had to introduce a rule that DW wasn't spoken about after dinner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that. What about wedding planning? Was that allowed after dinner?
No.
That was encouraged, I think.
Yeah, at one point I was like, do you want to talk about the wedding a bit more? But that's definitely gone on the back burner a little bit. So we're kind of looking forward to getting, having a bit more time to think about that, which is exciting. So yeah, the worry I think for you at the start was that if we didn't have a clear kind of training plan, then I would just go, I feel pretty good in the boat. We don't need to paddle 4 times this week, and that wouldn't.
I know that firstly wouldn't be particularly plausible.
It wouldn't work for the race, and would also cause you more worry than it would cause me. You'd be like, oh, I'm not prepared for this race, and I need that to kind of give me confidence for to be able to do it. I think it was really good to set that out at the start, and it really worked. And 4 times a week was about right. I think we
didn't train with other people, so not only do we live together, we then trained together, but there wasn't other people to add into that, because normally we'd be running with another group, but I got injured, so we weren't including other people from that aspect as well. So that made it even more intense because you had to cope with me injured as well.
Oh man, was this a running injury?
Yeah, I tore a hamstring back in December, so that was 2 months out from running.
Oh my God.
Which did put quite a scupper in the original plan, because although we were going to paddle 4 times a week, we were going to use running as quite a lot of our training as our base fitness, but that knocked that on the head pretty quickly. So I swam to make up for those hours, and you were cycling as well.
Yeah, I just cycled to work, so I kind of that was the only thing I did other than paddling, really. But that's 5 hours a week on the bike, which is I don't really. It's easy to forget that you're doing that when it's just cycling to work, but it does help, I think.
Yeah.
Wow, you tore your hamstring in December, Alex.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a serious injury.
Yeah, it wasn't great, and I had a couple of back steps, but
so you didn't really run in the lead up at all?
I didn't run for December and didn't run for January, and had to rebuild reasonably. Yeah, run walking, and then managed to get myself back to threshold training in the last few weeks of prep.
Wow,
that's impressive. Yeah, and I suppose at that late stage, even though the injury is quite far out, you do the time off, and then you start your rehab. You don't have any margin for error there.
No.
One little mistake there, one session too hard, you're at serious risk there, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, well done for managing that.
So, all right. So going back to Devizes, so you all had set your set your schedule for potential stretch goal of the record. How were you feeling as you left Devizes and hit the canal? And you started only about 20 minutes behind George and James. Was that according to your schedule time, or did you plan to start 20 minutes behind George and James?
George and James didn't factor into when we were going to depart. We were going for 20 minutes past to half past start time, because we didn't want to miss that tide window, we'll be honest.
Yeah.
It comes back to the completion thing. The tide window was...
Yeah, we were really worried about it. I was anyway.
We changed that schedule 15 minutes each way about 10 times the day before.
Yeah, we said to our support crew, you can print it. We're definitely done. And then 5 minutes later, we changed it by 5 minutes. Sorry.
So that, it didn't factor into it. We decided that was when we were going. We watched the women's boat race and then got on the water, I think was how it worked out. It was quite nice now knowing how far behind you set off behind us, Billy. I'll be honest. I
wasn't going to be messing around. I did not want that. One of the reasons was because I suspected we'd be faster on the water. But then also I felt we had better speed on the water, and I knew you'd run away from us. So even if we did end up starting, even if you'd have just started just behind us and put in a burn and caught us, I was like, doesn't matter. They're going to run at the very first portage. They're going to run away from us.
So what was that like on that stretch of canal where you all were obviously portaging incredibly well, and then you overtook George and James. How were you feeling at that point?
So I think coming back to the running, we know it's a big benefit for us, but it never spikes our heart rate as much as, we're not pushing hard. It's what our natural cadence is. I mean, it might be spiking Mags because he's pushing me along, but it's not pushing us super hard. We were shocked when we first saw James and George because we saw them go into the tunnel.
Oh, wow.
It messed with my head because I wasn't ever expecting to see them.
Then so of course Crofton's just after the tunnel, so we did a fair bit of.
We ran.
Yeah, we ran all of Crofton and probably caught a fair bit on that, and then we did stick together for a little bit.
10-15 minutes.
Yeah, something like that, and then just one of the portages kind of broke the chain and thought, actually, kind of rather just be on our own here. We don't want to have any of the stress of kind of portaging together and all of, DW is long and hard enough, and you kind of just don't want support crews crashing into each other. And but I think it's safer to be on your own. So we kind of,
unless prearranged, maybe.
Yeah. So you are really good runners. I was just gonna clarify how good at running you are, like with a marathon times or something like that. Because whilst you say you're running them hard and they're not spiking your heart rate, everyone's a different standard out here at running, and it'd be interesting for people to know actually how good at running you need to do to run portages hard and not spike your heart rate.
So we both went under 17 minutes for 5K last year. I ran 80 minutes on Marlow half marathon, which I think you've done before, which is a pretty hilly half marathon.
Yeah.
So
And that was the course record.
Okay.
So that's kind of the level of running that we're at. So a good club runner is how I'd call myself.
Yeah.
Wow. So you all dropped George and James. They did clarify with us. I think I speculated on the live stream. I thought, seeing both of the boats together, I thought, oh, I wonder if they're doing, a bit of wash, like sharing washes and stuff like that. And I think James, as soon as he saw that after the fact, messaged me to say, ha, 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 we were fighting for dear life. So I think they definitely enjoyed the benefit of that for a little while. And then how did things go for you getting onto the river? And I know you said you weren't really getting splits at any point. Did you ever in that overnight section get told by your support crew, like Billy and Jon are catching you up at this point?
No, didn't know.
So we got onto Reading, and that was one place I'd asked Dan for a time update. That was the only thing I wanted, a time update. How long has it taken us to get to Reading? I knew what I'd done with Dan. I know what most people have done in the previous few years. So that was the only one that we had. And I think we were 6 minutes up on schedule. So we had a blistering canal. And maybe we paid for that. Yeah, maybe it could have ended up differently if we'd have stuck more to that schedule pace. So we went onto the Thames at Reading, sprayed X because we thought it was going to be pretty choppy. That was a good example of where Dan took control, because I thought, I don't want a spray deck, you're wrong. And I was just told, put the boat down, you're having a spray deck. Perfect. That's exactly what I want in a support crew, because I don't want to think. I need somebody to be very strict. So you're a bit low going through that section, I think, on the Thames.
A bit further down, I think. Pretty much all through the canal, maybe with the exception of a little low before we had our kit change at Newbury. We'd been feeling pretty good, kind of chatting away to each other. How you feeling? Yeah, good. Boat's moving well. And then when we got down Reading, kind of Shiplake way, and it's properly starting to be the night, and the darkness has come, I definitely started to think, goodness, we've done a few of these long paddles. We did a Reading to Elmbridge paddle, and I thought that was a long way, and then Elmbridge isn't the end, and I had a bit of a low there where just started to think, wow, there's a long way to go, and my arms are feeling it. And I think, being a mixed crew, and particularly I'm quite heavy, so if I have a low, it's certainly you notice it if I stop pulling a bit. That lasted probably Shiplake all the way through
to
Bolters. Yeah, Bolters. We had a proper good stop, some food, some coffee, and that perked me up quite a bit. And it started to feel like we were counting down the locks a little bit more. Once we got there, it starts to feel like
it's only 12 locks or something like that.
Yeah, you can start to tick them off in your head. So that really helped. But it starts to hurt more and more as well. So it's hard.
But one of the long paddles we did Hurley to Elmbridge, and that day was a 20-mile-an-hour headwind. Sounds familiar, Storm Dave. But the flow was a lot higher. And I think mentally we'd built it up in our heads as to how bad that day out had been. And
it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad on the night, but I think that hadn't helped with the mental side of things.
Because at Cookham, the river really turns kind of due south for quite a long time. And I knew that we'd at least be getting kind of a decent crosswind. And we'd had a lot of help from from the wind so far. And I was thinking, oh, you know, this is going to be a long way and the wind is not going to be on our side anymore. So that really played into my head, I think. But actually, when we started to get there, got through Bolters and the river turned and the wind, I don't know if you found this as well, Billy, but the wind seemed to drop off or not be as gusty as it was on the earlier stages of the canal. And that was a real boost, actually, to think, oh, actually, this is not going to be as bad as that paddle where we were really... There were moments where we just started laughing. It was a bit ridiculous. Alex was getting shovels of water in her chest, and you could feel the boat slow down.
Really?
It was really bad.
Yeah. But
this is the previous paddle, not during the race.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
We originally had 15-30 hours to leave as well, and I had basically said, well, hang on a minute here. Like, I would be willing to leave until latest at 4:05 because I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to run the risk of the half log, but I said, okay, look, if you're going to go for a half an hour paddle, look at the weather forecast. Do you want to do it on Saturday afternoon, or would you like to do it on Sunday morning? And you can do that by shifting your start time half an hour later. You know, I wasn't trying to micromanage the weather and going, okay, I want to get to, you know, Cookham when it drops and then I turn south, you know, on that half an hour. I was just going, you know, half an hour on Sunday morning is better than the half an hour on Saturday afternoon. And I think you going, in my mind, I had like, whatever we get, they had 20 minutes more of, you know, whatever, and that helped me.
their pain is my strength.
I knew that all the tailwind we got was probably it did play to my mind that all the tailwind you were getting was probably more helpful to you, but when we had a bit of headwind, I was like, well, do you know what, that's probably better for us.
Yeah, I definitely think that headwind for you was going to play more to your strengths than ours. Not just hitting it later, but you're a strong crew, and physically and mentally, I thought that would be a benefit to you. A benefit to you by being more of a weakness to us.
Like I think just having done some surf ski paddling as well, like regularly in the surf ski, you're battling into a brutal headwind where you probably don't do in a marathon boat as much. You'd sack off a session or you'd find shelter, wouldn't you? But in a surf ski, if you're doing like in and outs, you're battling into a headwind, you know, and even like last year, DW with a headwind basically the whole way, I didn't find it that bad. It was just like, just get on with it. It's just, it is what it is. Yeah.
We did do a reasonable amount of so we train on an estuary now, and it was a case of sometimes like, yeah, this really sucks, get to the corner, and you just have to get on with it. But yeah, I think, again, having only come back for about 6 months, perhaps, yeah, and I think your surf ski paddling there is spot on. You're doing it reps and reps and reps of that headwind.
Yeah.
Well, your estuary paddling was something that came up on the live stream because I think we only learned that you all trained primarily on an estuary right around the time that you're getting onto the tideway. And the immediate thought was, oh, they're going to be fine.
We did not have a good time.
Okay. All right. So how was your tideway experience?
We all have our little rituals. And back in 2015, I was given a Galaxy bar at Teddington. I don't know why, but I've eaten Galaxy ever since. So I think pre-Dan and I going down the tideway, I ate 200 grams. I can eat chocolate and I can eat it well. Oh, yeah. This time I was I don't want any chocolate. Eat your chocolate. Again, no, don't mess with the seafoods. You're eating your chocolate. So I had 100 grams of Galaxy.
Some kind of evil Easter bunny.
But we got onto the tide. We crawled over Teddington Lock, I think is probably the fairest way to put it.
That was bad.
And we suffered for an hour. And then the chocolate kicked in, and I wanted to finish. So I had said to you, like, I want to get out and stretch. I'm done with this. And then something clicked, and we cracked on. Basically, it was a tideway of two halves, and I very much that was a calorie thing. I think for me, it's and a mental probably, but put in some calories at Teddington and get on with it. And I think having very briefly spoken to George and James, they said the same. They put in some caffeine and some potatoes, and
Clearly worked.
yeah, whatever they had, I'd like some next time at Teddington, please.
Yeah. I don't think I had quite as big pickup at the end. I was really just hanging on. Someone shouted from the bank, "You look strong," and I just laughed at them. I don't feel strong. I've never paddled that bit of river, so it was all new. And Alex had told me there's 20 bridges, so I was just hanging on to each bridge, and they couldn't come quick enough. I was really just looking around each corner, like, is that a pylon of the next one? I really hope it is. And yeah, it had been kind of a big mental goal for me to get to Teddington, and then I kind of knew once we're on the tideway, we're going to make it. It's the tide's pushing us the right way, and we're tough enough to just get there. But yeah, man, it was. I found it really tough.
Yeah,
you all did great. Also, like, it is still crazy how close you were to the record.
Yeah,
I was really impressed by that because you were not that far off in a year where, like, and I mean, when Keith and Lizzie did that too, that was it would have been like 10 years ago for you all, right? Like, it was their peak of international racing. It's crazy. And you all have just come back into the sport.
They had very, very little flow.
No, Magnus, they didn't. They had very nearly similar flow. It would have been minutes difference in flow.
It was 25.
54 I've got on my spreadsheet at Kingston. Sorry, at Kingston, they had 54 and we had 60.
Right.
Which is really very, very little difference. It's about a minute per QMEC, I think, at our level of racing. So they had a 6-minute disadvantage on you. I mean, we had that tailwind, but I mean, I found that it was windy. It was hard work.
Yeah, I think that was the other comment we had. Like, you're still having to stabilize in that wind. Just because it's a tail, you're still having to embrace it as well. Like, it brings up its other difficulties, I think.
Yeah,
it's not all fun and games just because it's windy. But I think you said at one point, going down the course, like, anybody who does this is super impressive. But it's given me so much respect. Like, that record is super impressive, and I've got so much respect for the times that have been done recently. It's really inspiring to see, actually, and great to see quite a few mixed crews. I know Billy at one point was like, "Can I not just have a nice quiet year?" But
you know, one of the main worries about you guys is, like, I kind of came up with the theory that to beat me and John, or just beat me, you need two things. You need to be supported by Danny Seaford, and you need to be a mixed crew, and it will just happen. So you've broken that theory.
There we go.
Tom Sharp said something quite nice at the end there. He was like, he was really pleased with the way that the results turned out, because he was like, "I'm really glad that Billy has won it, but he's won it in a year where he had to kind of fight for it." And yeah, I thought it was a nice way of putting it, because I think it means a lot to you and Jono. This has been like a concerted effort, a multiple year campaign, and I'm glad that we kind of gave you a good race.
We'd have taken the walkover, believe me. We'd have taken anything.
Okay, so I've got to ask one more question. It's up to you how much you want to answer it or not. But you did spend a lot of time away from paddling. You have now come back into the paddling world with a bang, I think it's fair to say. DW specifically, you were like, "Oh, let's get into paddling again. Should we start with, like, the most difficult race that we could do?" what can you say about sort of like why you obviously individually sort of stepped away a little while ago, and then what you're thinking about in the future, whether that is maybe another DW or, you know, potentially just kind of doing some regular old Haslers or whatever it may be?
So to answer the first question, I had quite a successful junior career, and then went away to uni and didn't kind of follow the well trodden path to Nottingham, where there was lots of people training, and I went my own way and trained on my own a little bit. Well, I trained on my own and went and did some. Me and Charlie Smith raced K2 in under 23s, and we did reasonably well. We made A finals and stuff, but I think might be wrong there. But to be honest, at uni, I kind of made a concerted effort to not let paddling be my identity, and I wanted to make other friends and make sure that I did well at uni, so that I had you know, a good job to have. So I kind of had other priorities alongside paddling while I was there, which I made the most of, and I've got some great friends, and I've got a good job, so that went okay. And I think when COVID came along, it really kind of became a good moment, I suppose, for me to step away from the paddling, going full out on the paddling. And then at the same time, we moved down to where we live now, which is kind of near Southampton, Winchester way. And it's kind of funny to say as an adult, but when you move somewhere new, you need to make some new friends who you live near. So we both kind of tried different sports, joined clubs, because that's a good way to do it. You joined a running club, I joined a cycling club for a bit, and then you were like, "Oh, you should really come down to the running club. It's good fun." So I did, and kind of, you know, made really good friends there and really enjoyed it, and kind of got wrapped up in that. So that's really the kind of the progression for me on why I stepped away from paddling. And then for the future, I'm not really sure. We've both got surf skis now. You just got one at the end of last year.
Courtesy to Billy. Thanks, Billy.
Yeah, Billy's old boat. And we've been out a couple of times at the end of last year, but not much. So I'd really like to do a bit more of that, a bit of Hassel racing maybe this summer. And we paddled around the Isle of Wight once before with Alex's dad Hugh, and I'd quite like to do that again in a surf ski, maybe a little bit quicker. We did it in sea kayaks last time. And then, yeah, other than that, I don't have any major goals. I guess we're getting married, and there's that to think about. But yeah, I don't know. I think maybe some autumn races, but I don't know what it'll be. It might be running, it might be a bit of paddling, hopefully a bit of both. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah. So I stepped back from paddling primarily probably because of COVID. It just coincided when I started my first job. COVID hit, and then I think it was only about a year or so after that we moved down to Winchester. And I'm very much an all or nothing kind of person. So joined the running club, and that was it. I kind of fell in love with that and have really enjoyed it. Made a really good group of friends, as Mag said. Like, met some really inspiring runners at the club, and they were on our crew as well. So I think we've started to get some crossover between the two. And it's been nice to kind of learn about the nutrition side of things from that. I think running nutrition research is a bit more advanced, perhaps, or rather that it's a bigger sport. So there's just more money and more research done into it. So it's been a good thing to go and experience that. And then I think, Billy, you are actually to blame that we made a comeback.
I did suspect it was mine and Jono's fault for this.
Yeah. So we actually sat I agreed that I'd support you. So Julian messaged me going, "Will you support Jono and Billy?" And I went, "No, I'm busy." I'll be honest, that was the response. And then 2 weeks later, it was Waterside D, and I was like, "Oh, actually, yeah, that'd be quite good fun." But we had agreed to marshal the tunnel, and so you'd kind of enjoyed boat spotting in the morning, and after the weekend finished, like Max had come and watched you guys, and it's just a buzz about DW, isn't it? It's really quite special. So yeah, I think it was pretty much that weekend Mag said, oh, actually, I do fancy doing this. And I was like, oh, who with? Because it's always been never you, never. We're not doing it together. But close proximity, I think it was probably the easiest thing to do. And that's why we kind of made a comeback, and it was start paddling in the summer, so we enjoyed a bit of summer weather before hitting the winter grind. In terms of what's next, I am going to stick with doing some paddling. I've definitely got some more DWs in me. Different goals. Like to look at pushing it on a bit again. Ours was completion. Who knows what it could be next. So yeah, I think that's exciting. It's just balancing it. I've got a running ultra this summer. So that's going to be a bit of focus as well, but it's learning how to balance it without cooking yourself. I think, which will be an interesting 6 months. So yeah, that's the next
Wow.
But hopefully I'll be back.
That's great.
It was lovely to race you, and it's amazing to see you both back in the sport and you know, at the front of races. It's lovely to see again. So hopefully it continues this summer.
And the welcome back we've had has been really nice. Not that we were expecting to be shunned forever leaving, but everybody, like, you can hardly move across the Newbury car park because everybody wants to have a chat, and it's really nice. Yeah.
No, and thank you especially to you two. It's been really lovely to have you welcome us back, and I really liked what you said at the start line, Billy, where you said I hope I don't see you until Westminster. I thought that was a lovely way to just send us both on our way. So yeah, really thank you to both.
No, I mean you don't want anything to go badly, do you?
No, you don't.
Yeah, exactly. It was a perfect way to say it.
Well, thank you all so much for chatting with us, and yeah, so happy to have you back in the paddling community, and excited to see where you go from here. And congratulations again on your incredible race.
Yeah, nice one. Well done.
Cheers. Thank you so much, both.
Cheers. Thank you.
Should we get straight into it?
Let's go.
Yep.
Why not?
I'm so happy. I felt like you guys were a little stressed beforehand. I think, George, you said you were nervous too, which is very understandable.
Yeah, sorry for avoiding you at the start. I did promise you 4 interviews, and I just hid in the car in the end.
That's okay.
And I let James talk for me because I think at that point my nerves were slightly running away from me. I don't know if it is nerves. It was more of fear. It was fear of I don't know what my body would feel like. 9 hours down.
Absolute unknown first DW, I think.
Yeah, it was a very odd feeling. Like, when you turn up to a normal race, you're either good or you're bad, and you know that. But for this, it was like, I don't know what I'm going to feel like, beyond kind of 6-7 hours, which is kind of the longest I've done. So it was more fear, I think, than race nerves.
Did you? I mean, you did. You did the Waterside series against people who had done DW before, and you fared very well, and you were, we were very close. I mean, we were basically neck and neck down the whole Waterside series. Did that not give you confidence going into it? Going, well, look, after 5 hours, we're still basically with these boys, and they've done it before, so why can't we?
Yeah, I think. Well, I love the Waterside series. I've done them for a number of years in K1 and stuff like that. But I think me and James hadn't paddled a lot together, and actually our first, we can say it now.
First, even be honest with ourselves, I think, George.
Watersides were not great. They were pretty.
It took me a few days to walk normally after Waterside Sea.
I'm
sure you must have seen the pictures of us in the boat together at opposing angles. I think you'll have to cut that into the podcast, Betsy. I'll send you the picture that both of us try and avoid looking at.
There were some people who were concerned. Yes.
Yeah.
None more than us.
Yeah.
I mean, we were in a lot of pain after sea. I really reluctantly put in the entry. I told James that I had put the entry in after A, just to keep us kind of motivated and keep us training. But yeah, we didn't spend enough time in the boat. We did what we could. I mean, we felt fit. We felt, I'd done a fair bit of running, so I felt quite, in shape. And then I'd done a few weeks after having a telling off from Billy about my mileage. Did a few weeks and pulled my finger out a little bit. So I was really happy when I hit my first kind of 100k plus week. I thought, okay, we're kind of in the game now a little bit. But no, we didn't really know how the boat was going to run. But if anything, the boat got better and better and better the more we moved through the course. The time we got onto the Thames, there was nothing I thought the boat was at any point was going to go wrong. It just got better and better, which might be a thing in terms of, I know in this country particularly, we tend to sack off K2s really early if they don't run. We kind of bin that, and it might just be a thing to kind of highlight that actually just keep working on it, because by the end of it on the Tideway, I've never felt so bomb-proof in my life. There was, it felt good.
I was going to say, like, you would not have that wasn't a boat that looked uncomfortable when it came past us. It looked brilliant. No. So are you going to write in to GB Canoeing and say, if you're having any problems with crew boats, just do 108 miles and non-stop,
and it's sorted.
Sorted. Yeah.
I think there's definitely something in that. But there's also the psychological thing of we're in this boat for the next 17 and a half hours.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for it to get uncomfortable, but it just never did.
It might have also been that nothing else mattered. Like, the lean didn't matter when we were that far into it, and that kind of, breaking down, in terms of mentally and physically, maybe we just forgot about it as well. But it did feel a good boat, really good boat by the end of it. Very comfortable, which, it was a nice feeling because, we kind of just scrapped down. We just raced it hard. An hour and 45 minutes, you can tolerate being uncomfortable. But then once we got to sea, it was kind of like, shit, this is quite painful.
Yeah, because we did actually do some boat running after sea. We kind of said we need to have a look at this. So I trekked over to Elmbridge and we did some drills. Probably not enough drills, but that really helped put us in the right direction with it. And I think that session gave us, I think without that session, we wouldn't have entered probably, especially when George came clean that we hadn't entered. And I realised that I could bail out without having to fork out £200 or whatever.
So literally you guys did like one session at Elmbridge with a bunch of drills, and that got you to D and DW.
Not even a bunch of drills, just one drill.
We did a bit of paddle pausing in the lock cut because we couldn't paddle pause on the Thames.
Wow.
So we had to get a shelter bit of water to do that. And then we did one last paddle. We went up to the K1 assessment race at Norwich, and did one more kind of paddle there.
Oh, we did that one with Will and Sam Cox as well.
Oh yeah.
That was the day before Waterside D, actually. So yeah, we did some last minute the day before D. But yeah, them last two were just sort of steady cruisers, probably closer to the DW pace, which is, I guess, why they felt comfortable.
Wow.
Everyone that was messaging me about the race was talking about your lean, and I hadn't seen it. And like I messaged like Tim GP, I think I mentioned it to someone else, and they both flat out denied it. They were like, I mean, you've got some really good mates, because they're just, what lean? There's no lean.
I've realised it was a problem on one of the races when I could see the nose of the boat over George's left shoulder.
Nice.
And I was that far to the side. So then yeah, I started trying to look over the other shoulder, and that kind of brought us back a bit.
But now we love paddling with each other. So
Yeah, it
it's
was
fine.
yeah.
You've cracked the code.
Because we put the pressure on as well. Because I don't know if you noticed, but we did have quite a big support crew make the trek across the country.
Yeah, there are a few names in there you didn't really want to annoy or let down.
At the end of Waterside D, I thought like D was one of our best races. We intended to do it slower actually, which I think probably would have helped us, but we got carried away with. We felt really good on the pound. Helping Brindy out with our record was quite a fun thing to focus on rather than paddling. But yeah, getting to the end of D, I thought I don't think I could do that again, let alone 144 kilometers. So yeah, thinking, will we get past Newbury? Like, because you always see the crews pull out of Newbury, and it's like, how have you, what prep have you done? And then I thought there's a very real chance that we could be a crew pulling out at Newbury. But yeah, Newbury, we were great going through Newbury. I think we just got over the bomb that Alex and Magnus had dropped on us, and we're feeling good paddling ourselves again.
So let's get into the race now. And we definitely want to talk about that moment when Alex and Magnus caught you. But before that point, thinking back to when you were in the pen and choosing your starting time, was there anything that sort of went into that strategically? Were you thinking about what any of the other boats were doing, or was it just like purely based off your schedule?
It was purely based off our schedule, really. I quite like targets, and I quite like speed, and I quite like knowing what I'm doing. So for me, and James will kind of back me up on here, I'm sure. If we say we're leaving at a certain time, we leave at that time. I get very pissed off with him if he's faffing about with his drinks bag and putting his shoes on and stuff like that. So no, we stuck to our plan. We didn't really we didn't ask anyone. We didn't know when. I knew we were all going to leave at a relatively similar time, just based on tide windows and stuff like that. But we had a plan, and we were going to try and stick to that plan the best we could. That plan probably only lasted 5 minutes, but we'll come on to.
I think 5 minutes and 20 seconds, we knew it was gone when we missed our first kilometer target. But yeah, the only thing that was going to change the plan was how windy it was going to be, and if we thought that would speed us up or slow us down for the tide window. But where we were and where all the crews, apart from the Bradford boys, aim for to get on the tide, you've got enough scope anyway. That, I mean, if you're going slow, it's going to be a miserable trek down if you're in the last 45 minutes, half hour of the tide window. But we were aiming for an hour before the end, so we knew we could lose a bit, which we did end up doing. Anyway, I think we were 10 minutes. I think it was a bit more, 10 minutes out of schedule, 10, 15 minutes behind our schedule by the tide window. So, yeah, we got that pretty spot on. But we didn't want to be going with anyone, really, because that's when things started to unravel for us on the water sides, when we were trying to go for washes, trying to worry about where we were on portages. So I think the only thing people could have done to influence our start time would be getting on the water at 3 o'clock. We'd have gone, maybe we'll go at 3:05. And all our support crew had the times there. So for them to have to add 10 minutes to everything or whatever.
Yeah, I saw the spreadsheet on the dashboard.
I did offer to send it to you, I think.
Well, I think you did. I mean, your own schedule doesn't matter at all. That, it really doesn't matter. If you've got written down like you're going to do 4:40 to Newbury, like who cares, But everyone's secretive about it on DW, and then to just see it on the windscreen of the car park next to it, I thought was hilarious. So you said the first kilometre split wasn't on target. How quickly did things unravel for you?
Well, I think that's what we did well. We didn't let them unravel.
Right.
We just got on with it. We're like, well, it is what it is. Because before this, we've always said we could lose the race on the canal, but we're not going to win it on the canal.
Yeah.
So forcing ourselves to stick to that schedule, because there was a bit of a headwind to start with going out. So we had Keith on the bike telling us to chill out. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, I think we could. We're quite a heavy crew, so I always had it in my mind that the canal was where we were going to probably tap along, and survive, and try and come onto the Thames as fresh as we could. It's never nice looking at the splits if they're slightly off, but I don't think we ever panicked. We just said we're going to go on feel, we're going to go on heart rate, we're going to go on how the boat's actually running. And I think at the back of our minds, because we knew that the boat could potentially get uncomfortable, I'd rather have backed off and held a pace what felt good rather than chasing time or trying to get those kind of splits, and then getting uncomfortable by Newbury. So yeah, we were quite good with ourselves. We didn't run away with it, and we didn't get too stressed, which was good.
So when did you know that Alex and Magnus had only started 20 minutes behind you? Or did you know that before they overtook you?
I think Keith said early on that they'd left 20 minutes behind. I didn't think they'd catch us as quickly as they did. Then we stayed with them for a while. On the water, it wasn't an issue. The water speed, actually, it felt we were moving quicker than we were leading, in terms of our own pace. But it felt like we were just tapping along, which was quite a nice feeling.
Yeah, it was the best wash we've sat on, or the best we felt sat on a wash, I think.
Yeah, and they were shifting. They were. Like I looked at the watch, and it took us, above what we were cruising at. But the portages, they were a little bit hard. They were quite taxing, and then obviously, they were running, double locks and stuff like that, and that was never in our plan. So we called it. There was one portage where they, kind of got in a little bit before us. We did about a 2.5 minute chase down, and I called it then because we hadn't got back by that point. And for me, it was just about staying with our plan rather than quickly changing that plan. So it was nice while it lasted. But hats off to them. They looked pretty impressive when they came through. Alex looked really, kind of, in the zone and just, pulling hard. So it was nice to see.
That did drag our average pace back to where it should be as well. The time we sat with them, so that was a good boost. Seeing that tiny little number on the GPS, I didn't know how much that would affect my race, but that was a real positive swing.
Where was it that they caught you?
It was just before Froxfield, because we wanted to try and get through Froxfield without having to run it, because we knew we'd have to run it. Keith gave us a brief. When they catch you, just sit on the wash, use that wave.
Yeah.
And he even said try and ride it to the Thames, which probably didn't help our mindset, because the Thames
I was thinking that's a long way away.
Yeah, I was like, that's all of Waterside D, that's half of Waterside B and Thameside 1 away at this point.
Yeah.
So that's still 3 races away, mate. But yeah, so we knew they were coming, and then I said, can we get through Foxfield before they catch us? He made it clear that wouldn't be the case. So yeah, 18 minutes before Foxfield.
We were a bit further back, and someone I think at a bridge, or someone said, Alex and Magnus have caught James and George, and I think we got told they're not working together, and I just thought, wow, like they've caught them early, like that's.
Yeah, it was a strong pull from them, and they looked really good when they came through. They didn't look ragged or anything. They looked really strong.
So did you pick it up from, say, I don't know, Hungerford area? Did you pick it up on your own, or did you start to get better?
We just kept doing the same thing. We just got we were just comfy rhythm the whole way, even. And if you ask us about anything on the Thames until we got on that tideway, the answer will be we just had a comfy pace and we just stuck to it. And if it changed speed, it was because of the wind, the flow, or I'd had an extra potato.
Yeah, we just tried to stay as strong as we could, for as long as we could, and tried to not get tired. We did get tired, but really our race started. I think we probably picked it up a little bit from Penton Hook. I knew that Elmbridge was around the corner, which I really wanted to get to, just to have a bit of a pickup, because I knew potentially some people would be there. And then, so I'd say we probably started racing from Penton Hook, and then we got a kind of another life by Teddington. We just kind of, once James, I turned my watch off. I couldn't be bothered to look at it anymore.
I asked him if he wanted updates, and that was very clear that he did not want any updates.
From Newbury.
Yeah, pretty much from Newbury.
So yeah, I ran without a watch, pretty much from Newbury. And then once James started shouting like 350, 345, on the tideway, I thought, this is fun now.
Do you remember when we overtook you? Was it like Windsor or, like you say, Penton Hook when you started going a bit quicker?
Just before Windsor, you overtook us.
Right.
And you boys were like, I remember James mentioned, like, saying, their stroke rate is like, they're still pulling. And yeah, again, were we going to sit on your watch? Probably not. We just wanted to just stick to what we were doing.
Yeah, we tried for a bit, didn't we? But then it just made more sense to do our own thing.
It was just in my mind where we'd been getting some updates of when we were going to catch you, and I was still thinking, you were, going to be quite late on the tide, and then when you came past us afterwards, I looked at the tracker, but when how long after us you went through Teddington, it was like you definitely did pick it up, like you say, like.
When Alex and Magnus came past us, they caught. I was doing maths all the time. I wouldn't stand by the accuracy, but I was like, they've caught 18 minutes in 3 and a bit hours.
Yeah.
They're going to be an hour ahead of us by Teddington. And then you went through us at, I think it was just after Bray or Bobley. And I was like, these guys are going to be well down the tide. And I actually asked at Shepperton, I was like, what's the race? Where are we? And the support crew were like, Billy's 2 minutes up the river, try and catch him.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are you telling me that? Why are you having a laugh? Like, we're never going to catch Billy. He came through us hours ago and they were flying. So I think we probably got quicker, but to us, we didn't feel like we were picking it up. And this is where we're a deep water crew.
Yeah.
We're going a lot quicker on the Thames for sure, comparatively to. I know you're quite big yourself. I'm going to not focus on that. That you're definitely a lighter crew, but not that much lighter, obviously.
We were going quicker on the Thames than our projected timings. So the Thames was always a little bit more of a luxury for us, I think, because the data was saying that actually we were moving better than we put down on paper.
Yeah.
So the Thames was far nicer for us.
I think because you did a very mature pacing. It was really the main criticism the main worry, I think, for top marathon paddlers going over to DW is that they try and kick the arse out of it.
Paddlers, George.
You're both top marathon paddlers.
Yeah.
You are. Come on, give yourself some credit there. And they normally, when they go to DW, they try and kick the arse out of it in the first half, and then they blow up. Whether they get to, Newbury, Reading, or wherever, the list is pretty long of really top paddlers that really struggle to finish DW.
No, I will agree with that. And I think me and George probably share the reputation of people that in previous races that are sub 2 hours have gone out hard and blown up early.
I made a living out of it, I
think. George's famous fast start. But yeah, I think that may have made us very aware that could happen, and almost fear that even more.
I think even when Magnus and Alex did catch it and we were kind of going along with them, I did have a little bit of panic in me, a little bit, that are we just overcooking this too early? As much as we were being told to stay with them, and as much as it would have been lovely to stay with them for longer, at the back of my mind it was, is this going to come back to us further down the course? And for everything we gained on the top section with them, what would we have felt like once they had gone on the Thames or whatever, and how would we have felt? So I was probably overly cautious, just because I didn't know what I was going to feel like by Dreadnought.
And that was clear to us when they had left us. We both felt that we'd been on that wash a bit longer than we should have done, because you do get picked up by how good being on the wash feels and racing another boat through the portages, and then the pain comes once they've disappeared around the corner surprisingly quickly.
And having a support crew, on bikes and at bridges and stuff, saying, get back there, get out early, run hard. We are racers, and we do.
You want to do it for them.
And it was, it was fun for the period it lasted.
And we could tell Keith really wanted that to make that race, because for him that was our ticket to win. Like, sit on that wash, don't lead at all, and then if they blew up, we'd be able to carry on. So it was nice that he had that confidence in us. But yeah, we didn't think we could do that, which I think was the right call.
I was aware that...
and he went a bit quiet after that, and then I think he eventually came round to the fact that we had made the right decision.
I don't think we saw him for 20 minutes after that.
I wasn't convinced that we would be the last to start. I sort of thought Alex would leave after us, and I had it in my mind that if they caught us, I wasn't going to try and portage with them. So I think you made the right decision, but I think you were quite brave, especially over Froxfield.
Yeah, we hadn't run Froxfield on any of the water sides, and then to do it, and then suddenly I'm halfway on it on DW, thinking, but it didn't feel too bad. And like I said to George at the time, I'm really glad we tried. Like, if we'd have just let them go, I think 2 or 3 hours later, when we still felt as good as we did, it would have been, oh, what if? But yeah, we found out.
At some point down the course, your support crew must have told you that Escott and Webster were ahead of you and you were lying in 4th place. Do you remember where that was? And did you have any discussions about what to do, or did you just hit the hammer?
So our plan before the race was we'd chill till Penton Hook, and then if we were in a race at Penton Hook, they'd tell us, and then we try and do what we could in the last 50k or so. We didn't get any updates at Penton Hook. We didn't get any updates at Chertsey. We didn't get any updates at Shepperton. And so in my mind, I was thinking they'd be telling us if we were comfy somewhere, and they're not telling us. So I think they probably thought we couldn't catch, or that we were going well, because I think we were actually closing on Alex and Magnus at them points as well. So what I think they might have done is thought that we shouldn't change what we were doing the right things. Because then at Sunbury, when I asked for an update, and we didn't get a where we were in the race update, we got a where we were on the river, like Billy's 2 minutes ahead. And yeah, it wasn't that helpful, because in my mind we were never catching you. So that didn't spur me on to try and close it down. That just kept us doing what we're doing. And then at Teddington, it was only we stopped at Royal Canoe Club, which was a really nice place to stop. Actually, I'm really glad they made that call. But yeah, they gave us the update. They said we're 5 minutes behind 3rd place. If we do a hard tideway, we might be able to catch them. Keith also said they hit the tide early as well, which gave me more confidence in that, because I'd spent a long time when I was planning our times and everything. I spent a long time talking to Keith about it, because he spoke with the Port of London Authority of when the best time to go, and so he it's not that hard. You just aim a bit later, because it's going quickest in the middle of the tide out. So, but he didn't tell us how early they got on it, so I didn't realise till afterwards that they were actually one of the first 5 or 10 boats on the tideway. So yeah, and we didn't. They were screaming at us the whole way down that tideway. Like there's a couple of videos I put out of them absolutely screaming at us to keep going and working it out. I think we'd caught them within the first 5 or 6K on the tideway, we were clearly in third. Certainly by the time we caught you, but they just kept screaming that we had to keep catching. And so I think we thought we were racing for third the whole way.
I think that, we probably, the racing side of us came out at Teddington. It was kind of like, it's amazing what you can find when there's a bit of a reason to go. And we were sore and we were in quite a bit of pain by that point, but the boat was comfortable, and we did kind of just give everything, for that last 27K or whatever.
We also took as much caffeine as we could at Royal Canoe Club.
Yeah, we were slightly off our faces by the end.
Yeah. The other thing was we hadn't seen any boats for 15 hours. And then on the tideway, there's so many more boats. We're catching up. And we started catching boats around Elmbridge, really. And I don't know if you've seen a video of the support we had at Elmbridge, but that was a megalith. Like, I'm sure George can sum it up a bit better than me.
For me, getting to Elmbridge was kind of like a focus, because I felt pretty rough from kind of Marlow, just after Marlow down. I had a few GI issues and things weren't sitting. At that point I was just on water as well. I just couldn't take any more of the kind of the liquid, the carb drink and stuff. So for me, it was always getting to Elmbridge, and then I knew that I'd probably get a pick up there. I wasn't sure who was going to be there, if I'm going to be honest, because it was 4:30 in the morning, but we had a huge load of our junior kids out and their parents and stuff, and I think it's fair enough to say that I cried down the cut and then started James off, just because I think at that point you're so far beyond what you normally do. It was quite emotional.
You realise how big the thing that you're doing is.
Yeah, and
even
how much
just finishing
other people really.
Yeah,
and just inspiring kind of kids at your club. I think that meant quite a lot to me.
I think I saw like at least 30 people out supporting you all at various points, and so many juniors and kids from the clubs. It was really, really cool to see. And as you say, like, it's easy to see how that would mean so much in that moment to have that kind of support.
absolutely. I think a few of them even jumped on bikes and came down with us as well. And then we had a junior lad and his mum come all the way to Westminster.
Yeah.
And they got
That's incredible. By bike.
They got some really good videos and the pictures of us with our last support stop at Royal.
Yeah.
But yeah, just seeing the bikes in your peripheral. And they said they were having a hard time around the outside bends on the tideway as well, keeping up.
No, it's that we saw them on the bikes, and we thought, okay, they'll cycle down the end of the cut, just by Elmbridge, and then kind of kept seeing this light, kind of appear on my right hand side. I was like, okay, they're coming to Sunbury. Oh no, they're coming to Hampton Court, and then you see them on the tideway as well. So they kind of were up at 4 a.m. and they cycled all the way to the end. So that was lovely to kind of experience as well.
Oh, I just need to add one more point on the DW, because paddling down from the stages race, George did announce the points that he dropped me on day 2 and on day 3 as we were going through them, just to address the balance.
Whatever motivates you at that stretch, like I think some of you guys got creative on motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was all we had left.
Do you all feel like you essentially, like, do you stand by your strategy of like take it super steady and then give it everything you have left at the tideway, or do you feel like maybe you should have gone out a little bit harder?
I think now I have the confidence to maybe hurt more earlier on. For me, it was such an unknown. All I wanted to do was get to the end. That was our primary goal. If we got on the podium, that was a bonus to us. So I think now I probably have more confidence, maybe tapping into pain earlier on. What did really make that, or what was a good way of seeing that was when Billy and John came through on the Thames, because they were like, you could see they were in pain. The stroke weight was high, and they were still digging really hard. And having had a few days off since DW, I just think, actually, I think you can probably play around with pain more, or pacing at a higher rate more. For us, in terms of our first outing, I think we did everything right. I wouldn't have changed the way we raced. I think it allowed us to get to Westminster, and we just had a bit more later on down the course because maybe we tapped away on the canal, quite conservatively.
I think I would, agree there. I think, knowing what we know now, if we did it again, we'd probably have done the same tactic, just started our sprint finish a bit earlier. And I think our support crew would have encouraged that as well, if they knew how good we were and how we could still make the boat move. Because from my support crew, from my side, from our support crew on my side, they all announced how surprised that they were at how fine I was, even late on. Like at Chertsey, where we had to cross over on the boat, George jumped over the boat a bit early. I was still on the steps coming up, so I couldn't get over the boat. But I just swapped the boat in my hand and leapt over as we were walking down the steps the other side, and that kind of got the reaction from the support crew of like, why can you still do this? And so I think if they'd have realised how good we were feeling, they'd have pushed us on a bit more. But then also it's so unknown. Like for me, I was like, just get to the next lock feeling this good.
I think it's challenging to both be attempting your first nonstop DW together as a crew. Is that, if another crew were to do something similar where, both people have not actually attempted or completed a nonstop DW before, do you think that strategy, is that a strategy that you would recommend to sort of focus on the finish and take it steady off the start?
Well, we never intended to focus on the finish. I think we were surprised at how good we felt there, going down that. It was really nice from Billy in the changing tent afterwards to say fair play, lads, both first DW. I think you said you did it with Jim King, who had done it a few times. I think there is a double-edged side to that, where we were both experiencing things for the first time, whereas if I was doing it with a DW legend, I'd have a lot more pressure on myself, and they'd be assuring me that I would be fine. So getting into the uncomfy stages without knowing that you will be fine would have been scary, I think. But I think it's a huge race to just finish. So if people are scared of doing it for the first time with someone else, then they absolutely shouldn't be, and they should just get their entry in as soon as they can and get out and do it. Because I think between us, what we went through, we would encourage everyone to just give it a go, not care where you finish, and anything else is a bonus.
I think it's a race which you learn so much from, and more people should do it and not be frightened of doing it. I remember Tom and Anushka saying, don't be frightened of the DW, and in my mind that was crazy. Why wouldn't you be frightened of this race? But you have more highs than you have lows, and I would encourage more people to do it. But what it has changed is my opinion of everyone who does the race. I've always thought about it as, it's probably quite hard, but I think anyone who finishes the DW now is higher up on my kind of respect level now, because it is really hard, but there are some great times. There were times when we were seeing our support crew and when the boat was running well, and I just think I couldn't think of anything better to do this, and doing it with James was an absolute pleasure. I really wouldn't have wanted to have done it with anyone else on my first one. He saw me at my lowest, saw me at my highest, but it really was a pleasure to spend 17 and a half hours in a boat with him. yeah, DW's been, it's been epic.
So, will you two consider going back again?
This was announced, I think, before Newbury. I think one of the boats said never again. But I reckon it'll be a discussion point.
Yeah, we often make these decisions when we're not thinking too straight. So we'll see if we end up going out again. We'll probably sign up for it.
Yeah,
and I might even sign up earlier than after Waterside did.
yeah, in the earlier price bracket as well, please, George.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I actually quit canoeing on my first DW. I was I don't know where I was, but I promised. I said, look, you never have to get in a canoe again, but you have to get to the finish. And I was like, yeah, that's a good deal. I'll do that. I'll finish this and never have to get in a canoe ever again. And I meant that. Lasted about a week.
And how many years ago was that?
Oh, that was
how many hours of training on the water?
9 DWs ago. 9 years ago. Sorry.
I think the only other thing I'll kind of add at this point is I'm really starting to enjoy the longer stuff. I kind of got into the longer stuff doing the Thames 200, and paddling. That was my first time paddling with a torch on the front of my boat, and I found that really exciting and fun. Kind of with Ed Rutherford and his K2 partner 2 or 3 years ago. I think there's a lot in the long stuff. It's a different pressure. It's a different type of paddling, but I am starting to enjoy the long stuff, which again, it's going to keep me paddling, hopefully, and keep me in a boat. I'm not going to say no, but I'm not going to say yes at the moment.
All right. I feel like you guys are convincible. This is very exciting. Huge congratulations, George and James. It was such a pleasure to watch you all down the course. And it is so wonderful to just see what kind of experience you had and hear from you all today. So thank you so much. And we will see you on the water.
Thank you both.
In the water.